Welcome to part 3 of my Acceleracers collectible card game card ranking series, where we take a look at all 86 vehicles in the game and see which ones are actually the best and which ones are the worst. And so, last time we covered the Metal Maniacs and the Teku along with the base stat ranking rulings and, of course, the adjusted ranking rulings. And we took a look at a scenario of two cars of pretty even stats, and ran them through each realm to see which one had more realm advantages and which one had more instant wins. And so that helps determine which one is truly better, even if just fractionally, in adjusted rankings. Here's a quick summary of what we went through last time with the Metal Maniacs and the Teku. But of course this time we're talking about the Silencers. So for base stats, in dead last we see Acceleracers with 2 SPP detriment values of 2 and a 3 performance value. This is even worse than High Voltage's SPP stats, which we saw in the Teku. To compensate, it has 2 terrain bonuses and a weak mod recycling effect, but neither of these effects or bonuses are really helpful in its base stat ranking, given that those SPPs are just dragging it down too much. Its upgraded form is next, and this is a rare instance where even though the ability is boosted, it loses a terrain bonus. Why the developers did this, I have no idea, as it makes an already weak car almost as weak as its original counterpart. Next, we do see some high value stat vehicles, but their power detriment values of 2, just like what we discussed in the Teku, make them too weak for competitive play. Especially because both of these with 5 stars are all-terrain vehicles, with 5 stats, not stars, are all-terrain vehicles which is probably the weakest vehicle class in the game. Meanwhile, Metalloid is over Octanium here because of its modability, and because both of them have base SPP totals of 10. And we're keeping them pretty even, we're only looking at SPP detriment of 2 to drag it down as a final case scenario, whereas the 5, although good, it's still even total. So next to note is Technetium 2 over its base form due to the terrain bonus, and again we are not considering abilities and base stats. And then we see a range of SPP totals with 2 values of 3, for example Nitrium, Iridium, and Vector Octanium. But unlike values of 2, values of 3 are not as bad as one would think. Nonetheless, as is more apparent when we get to all 86 card rankings together, having 2 3-value stats is not viable in competitive play. Funnily enough, only the Silencers and Drones have this weird SPP value set with 2 3s and a 5, and only the Silencers have a 3-3-6 value color. But of course Iridium is no match in base stats for Vector Magnesium's terrain bonus. Ahead of Vector Magnesium is Vector Anthracite for its modability percentage of 35% to the former's 27.5%. And then we see the top 5 beginning with Covelight and moving up with Carbide, Vector Iridium because a single value of 3 isn't considered a detriment like 2 in less than the performance value, Vector Covelight, and Vector Carbide. Unlike the Metal Maniacs and Teku, the Silencer's top car is not a ghost rare. Still, Vector Carbide packs quite a bunch, rivaling the stats we saw of Torque Jackhammer, save for pretty much its dual modability of the Metal Maniacs. As for the adjusted rankings, we still see the Acceleracers are dead last. I do not recommend using these cars under any circumstances unless you have no choice or are playing themed decks. If you need a mod recycling effect, I would much more recommend the Hollowbacks. And so first in the ranking changes is Octanium surpassing Metalloid. The instant wins and realm advantages yielded by its 5 performance value far outweigh any modability concern in actual gameplay. But since it is an all-terrain vehicle, I would caution using both street and race cars as well in your deck, as all-terrain appears to be the hardest cards to draw in the game. Next is Technetium, passing Technetium 2 because the special ability to hold 8 cards in hand instead of 7 is a better boost to a player's potential than a mere 16% terrain bonus. Next of note, we see Nitrium surpassing Vector Metalloid. This was a very close call, but while Vector has 9 realm advantages, Nitrium has 6 advantages and 2 instant wins among them. And when the advantage differential is approximately 3 or lower, I prioritize instant wins. But again, these two are otherwise pretty even, and so both would do pretty well against each other. Next we see Vector Technetium over Vector Octanium and several others because the upgraded ability to hold 9 cards in hand is borderline broken for deck potential. That said though, the more I analyze this game, the more I think the best deck would mean one wouldn't even need so many cards in hand, but for the average player, I have seen this hand advantage work wonders. We then see Vector Magnesium overtaking Vector Anthracite. In all honesty and base stats, Vector Anthracite was only ahead for its modability percentage, but given this is pretty even in actual gameplay for most colors, we can instead look at realm advantages and instant wins, and so Vector Magnesium is a clear victor here with multiple unique instant wins. Final change is Carbide surpassing Vector Iridium. Although Vector here has 5 instant wins compared to Carbide's 3, Carbide has far too many realm advantages from the increased speed and power stats to be beaten. Otherwise, the top cars remain the same, as these vehicles showcase the best the Silencers have to offer, and as we'll see in the final rankings, these 5 hold up pretty darn well. And additionally, for those who may have been paying attention so far, there is a certain theme among quite a few of these top 5 that we will see play out in the overall rankings, and that will help determine which cars are actually the best to utilize in a very competitive deck. If you run this deck, I have a high belief that you will win most of the time. So, stay tuned for the 4th installment where we examine the drone vehicles and see their unique take on how the game is played.